In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Oh yeah. Okay. I saw that. You showed me the shirt before.
Oh no, I was going to do a bit on it.
Oh.
Our presenting sponsor.
Totally fake company that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's what makes it perfect. So that's where.
You ready?
Yep.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 99.
99 and also the first episode where we have a presenting sponsor. It's Stingray Enterprises. It is a fake company now accepting hiring bids. Uh, we do have a recently hired biologist as well as a CSO. We have chief of HR.
Okay.
I serve as we have a president of business operations, and I have yet to figure out what my role is, despite the fact that I drew up all of this.
So you're marketing director. I got it.
Marketing director, yeah. I did create a Twitter page and immediately just like retweeted Draymond Green being pumped up uh, picture from ESPN, and I said with the retweet, "This is the look of a guy who works for Stingray Enterprises."
Alright, well, let's get going. So, let's
Right.
finish the thing we started 2 months ago. 3 months
Yeah, do
ago.
we have a view of this where we can actually see the bracket, or are we just gonna walk through this?
No, this what we got.
Okay, well then I'm gonna need you to take the lead here because
Right, so
by the way, record-setting performance by us. Yes, it's been a long time since we've done an episode, but if you know this podcast, then you know that's what we do.
yep.
But we do have a little bit of news at the end of the show about some potential project that we have coming up. But for now, we are the longest running March Madness bracket in the world because we somehow started this chapter of our Wheel Madness before March Madness started, before conference tourneys were over, and we are now about a week away from the end of May,
Yeah.
and there's been a champion for over a month,
Um
and I don't know if it was just because we wanted Kansas and to potentially be right about this for as long as possible, but we were like, this is kind of like turn the tides about like we wanted to be so proactive with this. Let's get it done. We have to be in front of March Madness in its entirety. We have to because that's the opportunity we have to get views before things happen and keep things funny. And then we just like now it's actually even funnier because we left what little people actually listen to the show hanging for over a month and a half at not even the final 4 point. Like we finished the bracket because it's like at this point we absolutely had to.
Right. So, anyway, so at the top in the West we have Southeast Louisiana and Kansas in our final 8. Then we had East Carolina and Delaware in the East. At the South we have USC and Ole Miss, and in the Midwest, Coppin State and UT Rio Grande.
And as you said, chop and stay accidentally. I think that I mean, just for the sense of flow, chop and cop and state should be a real thing.
Good, like,
I think that they should. I think it's the Eagles, Coppin State Eagles. It should absolutely just be Choppin' Coppin State now.
yeah. It's a good
The
little hype
only
thing.
the
Like, let
only team
Coppin
with
State
no
go
nickname.
chopping.
Yeah, the only team with no nickname. They don't need one. It's just Choppin' State.
Yep. Anyway, in our four, we have Kansas, oh so close, East Carolina, Ole Miss, and Choppin' Coppin.
Choppin' Coppin. It's all of a sudden
It is now their name on this podcast
well,
forever.
it that, and it's a shame that we played out the rest of the bracket, because if we had gone with Choppin' Coppin, by default it had to be the winner.
Yeah.
Because yes, we largely use a wheel, but we just kind of like Sean in our episode prep was just like, are we going higher or lower on this matchup? And we had been so long that we don't even remember the teams. I wasn't even looking at the bracket. I was just kind of scrolling
Yeah.
through, and it was like,
I just had the seedings in front of me. I didn't
like
even know what the teams were.
it was just like a squirrel running in a circle in my head, like upper, lower, just. And I was like trying to put Agni into it, like, geez, what should it be? And
Yeah.
I don't. If you can actually read this bracket, because we still have the worst graphics when it comes
Well,
to like
the
we do what we can, but like
the two things for the championship game was East Carolina and Ole Miss, so we had a 12 seed make it all the way.
yeah.
And Ole Miss was your champion of our wheel decided bracket.
So I think this is the first time we had a Power Five school win the championship.
Hmm?
Because we went. I know we had the Chicago State, and I don't remember any of the
We
other
had something
champions.
equally as bad last time.
Yeah. So I mean, record wise, I think Ole Miss is equally as bad, but
Yes. Yes, definitely.
they did not make the real tournament. They were 13-19, and their season in real life
And
ended March 9th.
considering we made this bracket when they were 13 and 17.
Yeah, yeah. So they somehow then managed to lose two more games.
Yep. All right. Well, congratulations to Ole Miss. You won a totally nonsensical, useless bracket.
And you won a bracket that, I mean, is not going to help recruiting.
Nope.
Like, you could have gone to the NIT and won games. You could have gone to the CBI, won games or lost games, and you still have gotten decent recruiting. This don't do shit. So, um, there are mid majors that will have better recruiting classes.
Yep. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
there's a
on
good chance that Ole Miss in real life fired their coach after this season.
anyway, on to the NBA. So here was the 2022 playoffs, right?
Yeah, so far.
So far. Um,
Wait, Kermit Davis? That's the Ole Miss basketball coach. His name is Kermit.
well,
Apparently,
Kermit Davis, congratulations. You won the wheel bracket.
oh my god, this is amazing. This is like better than
Um,
what we're about to talk about.
anyway, on to the NBA playoffs, right? Okay. On one side of the bracket, we have the 1-2 seed in the Celtics and the Heat make it all the way through to their conference
Yeah.
final.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, we have the Suns get upset by the Timberwolves, right?
No, not the Timberwolves, the Mavericks.
Mavericks, sorry.
And if you watch the games, you would know there was no upset there. Like,
Well, I'm talking about a seeding upset, not a.
okay, well, if we're gonna go seeding upset in like in terms of record, then the Suns losing a single game would have been like the upset of the whole fucking NBA playoffs, because they were 8 games ahead. That they were basically two series worth of wins
Ahead.
ahead of the best team the second best team in the NBA, which also lost.
Yep. Yeah, so here we have the 4 seed against the 3 seed.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. As a Suns fan, I thought that the Warriors had the best chance because the Suns had the best record, but you only play the teams that are like really strong in roster at every position, like the Warriors, 4 or 5 times a year if
Mm-hmm.
they're on your in your conference. And Steph Curry, it doesn't matter how good the defense is, will get his numbers.
Yep.
And if you double team him, then Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole are going to get their numbers.
Yep.
So my thinking was if they had to play Golden State, they were going to lose to Golden State. Now, with that being said, people will say that I'm not the right kind of Phoenix Suns fan for this, but they have DeAndre Ayton, who was bigger and stronger of a front court presence than anybody that the Mavericks had. And they just decided never to pass him the ball and let
Yep.
him go to work. So, and then once they were down 20 in games, they had to shoot the three and try to get out of it, which was what the Mavericks were defending well. And they lost games because they never adjusted and they never tried to like fight back. And so now, like, uh, I was watching the Penguins game 7 because it was at the same time, and because like I had hype, I was into the Suns game. I was like, all right, but by the middle of the first quarter and they were down 15, I was like, I'll give it to like the middle of the second quarter. But if it doesn't get any better, then like
That's
I'm
over.
going to watch the Penguins game,
Yeah.
and that's what I ended up doing. They lost by 40 some points.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, anyway, I'm a Nets fan in my casual watching of this sport, so I really can't talk about anything.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not great, but like for me,
all right, what's the
I
what's the finals looking like so far? If
so my thinking is in terms of how strong teams are.
I think
I
you have
would
to pick the Warriors, right?
Yes, you absolutely
You
have to pick the
absolutely have
Warriors.
to. I would have picked them anyway.
That's a no doubter. They're up 2-0 in this series, which didn't mean anything last series. But like, I bet the Warriors to win tonight because like I just don't see the Mavericks like coming back. Like it didn't matter if I was tailing a gambling guy or not. Like the fact that the Warriors were what were they? I think it was like minus 130 was like a great price for a team who was
Yeah.
kicking ass to say the least throughout the playoffs.
Okay. And what about the?
They were plus 130.
Okay. What
So
about the Heat and Celtics? What do you got?
that one's a bit of a toss up. Jimmy Butler is on a tear,
Mm-hmm.
and the Heat have great culture. But if there's one thing that the Celtics always have, it's great defense and great culture as well. So, but the Celtics have lost games because of injuries and
The injuries are
and
affecting their depth, right?
well, they had some non-player staff test positive for COVID, and that took some of their starters out of game 1.
Right. Okay.
So right now, I think Miami's up 2-1 in the series,
Yeah.
but like it's hard for me to put past anything. Like it feels like the Celtics year,
Uh-huh.
just because they went from middle of the pack around the All Star break to absolutely going on a tear. And you know as well as I do, hockey, basketball, whatever it is, it's the team that goes into the playoffs hot that's the most dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the Heat over the course of the year are very good, but for me, I think unfortunately, as much as you and I hate Boston winning championships, and I saw that eye roll, and I can only hope that it's for the same reason. Like the Celtics just seem to be the it team.
I have to pick the Celtics for this matchup too. I still think the Warriors will win whomever gets out of that one, but
Yeah, and look, there is no like I would say that the most fan favorite thing that could happen is the Heat take it all at this point.
mhm.
Because like there is no anti-Boston shit. The Heat, like, yeah, they had the LeBron era and stuff like that, but the fact that they didn't need a big three or a big four this time around, like, yeah, they have good players and Kyle Lowry, and they've got good supporting cast, but like their their supporting cast is nowhere near all-star talent at that point in
I
their
mean, it's
career.
definitely not LeBron era. So there's that.
Right, which makes it, but like it's also been 6 or 7 years since the LeBron era, which is enough time for the stench to wash off of it.
Yeah, true, true.
So, like, for me, my rooting interest will be Miami.
Okay.
Uh, so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All
Uh,
right,
I
well,
think it's a tough draw for anybody
how
against.
about the draft lottery?
All right, so, like, now we look at the other side of things, the best of the worst. Um, so it's an interesting poll because, like, the last time that the Magic had the number one overall draft pick, they took Dwight Howard. Worked pretty well for them until Dwight kind of fell off a cliff. But by then,
I mean,
he was
they got
already
enough
gone.
usable years out of Dwight Howard that you can't say it was like a problem.
Yeah, well, no, like they got the haul back that they needed.
Yeah.
Like they got a good haul for Dwight Howard. The thing is when you trade with the Lakers, like a lot of those picks and stuff don't actually turn into anything. So
Yep.
like the Magic at best were a 7 seed
Hmm.
in the years following. Now, this is going to be the interesting thing. Do they take Jabari Smith from Auburn, who is an absolute scorer, can handle, and can kind of do it all? And I think he's like 6'9", 6'10". Or do they do what a lot of mock drafts seem to have thought for the past 10 months and go with the lengthy, skinny dude, Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga? I am of the opinion that Holmgren should be nowhere near the top 10. Because if you see a
Once you say Gonzaga,
well, no,
I
it's
automatically
not.
assume you're gonna say something.
No, I challenge you to look up Chet Holmgren right now and tell me that this dude isn't going to get, you know, there's going to be a rebound where his twig body goes up for it. Somebody's going to step on his foot.
And he
It's
snaps
going
in
to
half.
crunch. Yeah, this is
Okay.
bad news.
Okay.
Like 7 foot guys with no muscle and like especially in the legs if you could like do the leg test and like your thighs are like nowhere near touching each other because that's how skinny you are, you need more meat on your bone, and I wouldn't put you on an NBA court until you have
Some more
double the
muscle.
weight, double the muscle on your bones. And I like for him, some fat would actually be healthy. You need something surrounded the tissue, and you need something surrounding the bones. And like I have to look up a picture of him to put.
I mean, I believe you. I'm not gonna challenge
Oh,
that. But so what do you think of the order though for the rest of the bottom teams? So we
well,
have
Oklahoma City's in a good spot because they're doing what they need to do. They've been acquiring picks for years. And by the way, this is what we're talking about here.
okay. He's literally bones. Okay,
Yeah,
skin and bones.
literally bones. And this guy is like, somebody interviewed him and said, "Who's the best player in the NBA?" He said, "Give me 2 months, it'll be me." I was like, "No, maybe, but like, you are going to get hurt, and you are going to get hurt often. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be extremely surprised.
All
Because
right,
look at how often Kevin Durant gets hurt, and he's got the thin legs too.
all right.
And when he gets hurt, he's not out for a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So, Oklahoma City, is in a good spot. They've been acquiring picks for years. So to get the 2 and the 12 is obviously beneficial. Um, Houston, they had the number 2 pick last year. They've been acquiring first round picks, or not in terms of actual picks, but first round players
Hmm.
in trades to get rid of veteran talents for a few years now. So this will be interesting. This will be a team that grows together, um, but will it grow well? Because if not, then it's kind of going to be a Sacramento Kings type thing where eventually you just start going through the phases of shipping out your next wave and rebuilding. It's the Pittsburgh Pirates method of doing business. Is like you gear up for that rebuild that lasts 3 years, but it takes 7, 8, 9+ years to
Yeah.
get it right. So that's the risk with Houston right now, and that's kind of the same thing always with Sacramento. Detroit got the number 1 pick last year, and Cunningham, who was that number 1 overall pick, has been good, but
I mean, I
like
also think like so I don't think a number one overall pick is going to propel you into the playoffs immediately. Like Detroit going
no,
from
it,
one overall to
LeBron.
being like, here is I think they're still okay. I
I
hope to
mean,
see them grow some more.
there's a lottery though, so
Yeah.
like they could still have had the worst.
I don't think they did though.
No, they didn't, but Detroit doesn't have the pieces built around Cunningham.
Yeah,
Like
that's the
their
point.
their best players around Cunningham will probably not be there in 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And yeah,
Um,
I mean the rest of the teams I think are just the rest of the teams. Like
See, like Charlotte could benefit from being worse, like on a consistent basis. I know they have Lamelo, and that LeVar Ball is probably going to cry till like the cows come home about how Lamelo shouldn't be on a team that's rebuilding. But like the fact of the matter is, they're going to lose Miles Bridges, who was like their number 2 scorer this
yep.
year, to free agency, and because they're a small market team, they're probably not going to be able to re-sign him.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been beneficial for them to try not to contend this year, get a top 5 pick
Again, I
in a
think
very good draft, and build around Lamelo.
I think the 10 teams in the playoff thing hurts the bottom of the table or the middle of the table.
Oh, absolutely, it does because, and we saw this when Indiana traded with Sacramento in during the middle of the year, and Sacramento acquired Demonis Sabonis, who was an All Star, and said, "We did this because we're in the middle of the pack for a playing spot at the time. They were only 2 games out of a playing spot. Now, Sacramento is the number 4 pick.
Yeah, but
So,
okay.
like,
Being the number 4
that,
pick, that actually kind of is like okay because they.
yeah, but at the time, they weren't that number 4 pick. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like the structure in having a play and knowing that you don't have to be 8, you just have to be
10th.
10th or 11th or 12th, really, to like be, considered in contention for a spot is like, yeah, but like, are you really playing for that one game? Because even if you do make it to be the 7 or the 8 seed, you're playing a team that in the standings is 20 plus games in front of
Ahead
you.
of you, yeah.
And at that point in a normal year when there wasn't a play-in, you would give up.
Yep.
And to say like, well, we have a shot because we made it this far is like, well, yeah, you're basically the automatic qualifier in the March Madness tournament from the middle of Texas that nobody has heard of, and you're going to play Kansas now. You're
Yep.
going to get beat by 35 points.
Yeah. All right. Well, on to other sports. So, we have the NHL playoffs also going on. We have some good matchups here. We have the Florida matchup with the Lightning facing the Panthers.
Well, it was a good matchup.
I even with how it's going, it can only expand the game in the state of Florida. I still think it's a good, like, just because it's there and they're fighting against each other. Granted, it's the second round. I wish it was, later if possible, but it's only. It was marketed as a good matchup. It's still like I still tune into the games because like even though the Panthers just got blown out, like still something to
5-1
watch.
seems to be the score of the series.
Yeah, I mean still like. Then you also have the Oilers and the Flames on the other side, which is a hyped matchup. The hope of Canada rests in that matchup. So Calgary take us home. It looks like, but.
Take me home, Calgary.
Then you have the Rangers and the Canes. This matchup wasn't as hype, but I still think it's pretty good coming out of like the Metro for that, or what
Yeah,
basically is
Rangers.
the Metro.
Well, the Rangers did win a game,
Yeah,
so unlike the Lightning series, it does have a two
but
games
I'm saying
one.
like there were two hype series going into this round, like, and that's only good for the NHL's popularity at this time, which was the Florida series and the Canada series, basically. And even though they're not turning out they're turning out like, well, at least the Florida series is turning out to be a blowout. It's still only good for the game because you have like those two teams made it pretty far. Like you can't discount what the Panthers have done, even though they're losing this bad, right? In the Canada situation, you can totally blame the Maple Leafs for not being the third Canadian team in the playoffs still.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Like, and unfortunately, the structure of the playoffs has been. I gotta get back into the camera here. I'm dealing with a different camera today, and it's fucking me over here. Like, I kind of computer built now doesn't have a widescreen webcam. But it's an interesting playoff format because I think we agree that we like what it allows for overall.
Yeah.
But there are two things that suck. And one is you rarely see a playoff matchup between division rivals for the conference final because it is settled in the semis or the quarters.
Yeah, or like,
Opening 2 rounds.
so in the case of the Metro, let's say, right, you have the Capitals on the Atlantic side of the bracket, and you have every other Metro team on the um what I'll say is the Metro side of the bracket, right? So the likelihood the Capitals come out of it because they're wild card two in this case, right, is very low. Whereas the Bruins also face that issue, so you can't have an Atlantic v Atlantic in the conference finals. That's just how it's played out. But like, because both Florida teams are there in that division, like it makes for a good round. And so at the same time, it's like it's fine, I guess. I mean, if you're a Canadian hockey fan, like the Canadians are just not good. The Canucks are just not good. So you're not getting any teams out of, aside from the Maple Leafs and the Oilers and Flames, out of into the Stanley Cup at any time. Like it's just not happening. Like I still think like as much as it plays around with the matchups, like the first round matchups are still pretty decent. Like you got to say that the Tampa Bay and the Maple Leaf series was good. Obviously it's sad for Canada hockey fans, but like still, they made on the east side of the bracket. You had 3-4-3s, I'm pretty sure, right? And 1-4-2. Like you can't say that it doesn't work in that sense.
I mean, and I don't know. Sorry, I've been kind of like back and forth here, but for me, the biggest disappointment is the formatting of Canadian teams.
But I
Like,
mean that's also a problem with there's only 6 of them and three, 2 of them just suck, right? The Canadians and the Canucks.
in the Maple Leafs, pretty much.
The Maple Leafs made it to the playoffs. They have something
Yeah,
against the
but that
first round of the
doesn't
playoffs,
fucking mean
okay?
anything. Yeah, you're right, but like, it doesn't mean anything at this point. It's
Oh, and
been
the Senators, I forgot,
40
they suck
plus
too.
years.
I mean, the thing
Yeah,
is, you
but
have.
like the Senators are so far from competing that they can't even get rid of Matt Murray. So like,
But I mean, the problem is more so that, like, I think that Toronto just has too much pressure on them always, being what they are and where they are. So, I don't know, but like, Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round of the playoffs, name a more iconic duo.
mhm.
So, we'll see. All right, in non-playoff news, the Devils play-by-play announcer is stepping down after 11 seasons. He was our Doc Emrick replacement,
Yeah,
which,
Doc,
I
you
mean,
guys
he
are
he
really good at.
really came into the role really well, so it kind of sucks. He's staying on the MLS
You
side.
guys are like the Syracuse University, but for broadcasters
No,
of hockey.
he did the Red Bull broadcast with MSG also. So he did both. Um but like
It's like Doc Emrick.
but Emmerich never did he only did he
He
moved
did
to a
everything.
different he like Doc Emmerich was always the Devil's announcer. He moved to a different he moved to national broadcast, right? This guy was doing both at the same time. But like at the same time it's going to be sad cuz he stepped into the role really well. So I don't know. I hope that the next play-by-play announcer for the Devils is good.
I hope he actually lasts longer than 5 minutes.
I mean,
It would be great if you guys could have a 30-year announcer.
I mean, I don't know if you're gonna ever see the years of 30-year announcers anymore. I just don't think that's feasible anymore. But yeah, like, did you want to talk about this?
So yeah, I had the excitement of going to my first in-person playoff game this year, Sean, and I saw the Penguins whoop up on the Rangers to a score of 7-2 and go up to 3-1 in that series. I was also there in Game 6 where the Penguins decided that it wouldn't be right for them to actually win a playoff series. Because keep in mind, I've been telling you, and I've been telling my girlfriend, I've been telling everybody I know, this was not their year. And I thought for sure they looked like they were going to prove me
I
wrong.
mean, the Rangers
And
were
they,
successfully getting
they,
beaten by Louis Domingue. I don't think it was a
no, they were not getting beaten by Louis Domingue. Let's make that very clear. Because Louis Domingue was still giving up 3.5 goals a game.
yeah.
And so, yeah, Domingue was not much. The fact of the matter, I told my girlfriend, I was like, when we were walking around before Game 6, I was like, somebody actually got a stitched Louis Domingue jersey and is wearing it. Like, this is like legit, like from the team store, too. I was
Oh
like, this guy is on
no.
a 1-year deal and he's going to leave. And that was the game where, like, he had the puck in his glove and threw, like tried to close it and it popped out and went in with a minute left, and that's how they lost.
Yep.
So full penguin mode, they proved me right because they decided that the best thing that they could do was give in at the very last minute, and so they lose in overtime in Game 7. And you know, like I said before, I had the Suns game on, and that was a Game 7 too. I got to see both. Like last year, the Suns made it to the finals. I wasn't expecting the finals this year, but like I was hoping I would have had another 2 weeks to like sink everything into one team, whether it be the Penguins or the Suns. And they just decided
Neither
to
of it.
kill. both games, I mean, yes, the Suns were getting blown out, but both games went final within minutes of each other. And so I went from having two teams to invest into to being like, well, I guess I gotta fucking find hobbies again because like this is bad.
I mean, you could be like me and have no teams to invest into because you had no hope in the Brooklyn Nets to begin with.
Yeah, but you were smart because every fucking media expert was like, the Brooklyn Nets are the only team that can win this series. And it's like, have you seen their bench? Like their bench is like being held up by guys who I'm pretty sure never played for the Suns back when Steve Nash was playing in Arizona.
Yep. All right, well, on to other series. You have the iconic Toronto Maple Leafs and the first round of the playoffs. Name a more iconic duo.
At this point, like it's so hard to feel bad for Toronto. I feel bad for the fans, but the Maple Leafs in general is different because like it's not like they don't have the talent at this point. Now, they seemingly forget to learn their lesson every fucking time. And you can probably tell where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah.
Having a franchise goaltender or even an above average goaltender who you can rely on is way more important than having a third line center.
Yeah, but there's also
$7 million.
something to be said about spending $10 million a year on that goaltender. Don't do that.
Yeah, but like time and time again, you win with weaker bottom six lines.
Yeah.
And time again, you win with having 1 to 2 strong defensive pairings and a third that's, guys who are on $850K contracts. And then you supplement that with great goaltending.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter who's running the show behind the bench or in the office for Toronto, there has been no interest in that. And Frederik Andersen was an all-star, but he was never actually that guy.
I think if this was a few years ago, not too many years ago, but like a few years ago, he could have. He was decent enough to have a good team in front of for a few years.
I will say there was that year where he was hurt in the first round. And because of that, they were playing Campbell, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that year was like Anderson's best year. That
but even then, like
chance.
That year aside, where it was his best year, like he's still been very serviceable as a goalie for a few years around that.
Other teams, though, he's in Carolina.
Yeah.
But like, Carolina has gotten further, but like the reason why I'll never consider them to be the favorites for the cup yet is because of that same reason. You can't beat James Reimer and Frederik Andersen.
Yeah.
And so, but like this year, let's say what it is. The Maple Leafs were still very good, and they forced a Game 7 against a team on a quest for a three-peat. Mm-hmm. That is saying something because that means any other team, they probably break that streak. Because
right, but
Tampa wakes up and has that chip on their shoulder that nobody seems to carry into the playoffs every year like they do.
Yep.
And so from there it gets dicey because you can't just run into Tampa every time.
Mm-hmm. But hey, with how the Panthers played versus how the Maple Leafs played in the regular season, I guess you can.
I guess, but because of how much money they've tied up into their top six, eventually the talent is going to sink and they're going to be screwed again.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to talk about coming soon.
Yeah, so I had an idea the other day. I think as much fun as it's been to do the comedic side of sports, and I don't think that we're done doing that, but I think that shouldn't be the basis for everything we do. I think we're going to start looking into an investigative kind of piece every now and then, where we do an analytical deep dive on what could have been scenarios.
Yeah.
So the one that I pitched to Sean was based off of when the Heat eliminated the 76ers last week, or the week before, and Jimmy Butler said that uh, the Sixers should have kept him instead of Tobias Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that, because we live in a world where everybody looks at the paper roster and says that's a wrap, it would have been fun to take a bit of a deep dive into that, look at win shares, look at statistics to see, okay, if the 76ers did keep Jimmy Butler, like what would the team statistics have been compared to teams that they ended up playing against,
Yeah.
what their record may have been. So to see if it actually would have made sense.
I mean, you also have to look at what they would have had to given up to keep
Right.
Butler.
So if Tobias Harris doesn't resign, his numbers are subtracted. Somebody else's numbers are likely subtracted too. And then you add in Butler's and,
Yep.
maybe like your average mid-level exception player, and see what that would have given the 76ers to win a title or not.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of evidence to support both ways, but we live in an era now where the deep dive part is lost. So I think that would be a cool thing to do. So maybe we'll be looking into that. That may mean that some episodes are a couple weeks spaced out when we actually do plan them and do go through them regularly scheduled. So, because that's going to take some planning sessions from Sean and I to actually put those things together.
Yep.
But I think once we start doing this, our plan is going to be rotation of the core four sports: basketball, baseball, hockey, and football. Not in any specific order, but a rotation just to see what we can find out. Because I'm sure there's examples of this everywhere. We just gotta find like really good ones, and that research in itself is not the easiest.
Yeah. All right. Well, next time, hopefully in 2 weeks or so, you'll see us with episode 100, which we are probably not doing anything special for. We'll have a regularly scheduled episode.
Yeah, maybe I'll make a logo or PowerPoint, but who actually gives a shit?
Yeah, so thanks for
100 episodes of a podcast doesn't mean anything anymore.
hey, for us it's
Not
3
like,
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
And as I told Sean, the sad thing is that in our first like year and a half, we actually did episodes every week.
Every week or every other week.
Every week, every 10 days, every other week. But like we were like bang bang straight on.
Yep.
Because like neither of us had dating lives, neither of us had, I wasn't in grad school. And like poor Sean, because he's had to deal with like, I went from grad school to moving to new job to dating life to moving again to finishing grad school to searching for new jobs. And all of that was like, I just wanted to put down everything I was doing and like play video games and like have left Sean on the hook,
Yeah. Meanwhile,
waiting for me to hit him up for the next episode.
I had my at least recently I had my fair share of moving new job. Well, new
Yeah,
job has
you
been
have,
2 years, but moving at least.
you have, but like, I keep the headlines coming continuously.
Yeah. Hey, it's all right. Well, anyway, thanks for
I
tuning in.
started a fake company.
Yeah, you can do it. Anyway, yeah. Uh, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Stingray Enterprises, if you want to work for us, just drop a comment. Hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, I don't care.